I've got wood, so let's break out the glue and get freaky with clamps. Welcome back everyone for the second episode of how to fake being able to build something nice. Hopefully by now your ply kit probably looks something like this. By lining up the ply gussets with the lines we drew earlier and a generous amount of glue, it should all end up looking a bit like this. Little gussets in the corners, big uns in the middle-ish. Note this is a really good time to check which way around your top panel is. You really want to be applying this to the underside. So once that's all stuck down and the right way around, we need to give it 20 minutes or so. Okay, now it's finally time to give it the clamps. The long walls go in first, glued and clamped down to flatten out the slight bowing. If our measurements were correct, the wall should extend perfectly to the ends of the gussets we just stuck down previously. To make sure that the walls are curing square, I like to take one of my miter cut pieces of wood, like one of the short ends, and check it against the edge like this. If it doesn't sit flush, then the clamps can be used to force the wood upright by tilting them and clamping them down again. A good thing about PVA is that you have plenty of time to get this right, and you can always wipe it clean and start over if necessary. While that's all curing, we need to drill some holes for the system buttons in one of the short walls. If you're building the bigger 40cm variant, you can just stick these wherever you want along the midline of the piece, but this Pika stick is going to be pushing it for button clearance, so I've carefully spaced the holes to avoid interference. Keep that in mind when it comes time to drilling. So once the pilots are drilled, it's time to use the 24mm spade bit to finish the job. I've used things like Forstner bits before, which make beautiful holes, but they go blunt stupidly quickly when they take on plywood. Spade bits might be a bit rougher, but they get the job done quickly. With the holes drilled and the long walls done, it's time to glue up the short walls. Remember that this system button panel goes in the opposite to the joystick side. Then we clamp it down and make sure it's sitting square against the other walls. It doesn't really matter if these stick out of the sides a little bit, as you can see with that rear one, it'll sand down. Like so many things in life, it's better long than short. Okay, now this is where that last bit of saw work was hiding. I cut a panel identical in size to the top panel, and then cut it into two L shapes like this. The interior cuts are made along those exact lines we drew on the inside of the top panel. The only difference is a 7mm wide strip is taken off of the end of one of the pieces. This will face the bottom of the stick on the Wiimote side and allow for the wire to pass through. Sounds confusing, but you'll see what I mean in a bit. And now that the walls are all done, we can apply the Wiimote spacers. They're 30mm wide, so should fit perfectly between the edge of the panel and the wall. If they stick out, you can always just sand them back a bit later, so don't worry about it. When it comes time to gluing the bottom panel spacer, it really pays to double check that you're actually putting it in the right place. We're applying this now because it'll make the next step easier by working as an alignment tool. As you can see, if this spacer is aligned, then so is the bottom panel. Now we can just slap on some glue and send it to Clampy Town. Just to be triple sure it's as square as possible, I like to measure the overhangs with my steel ruler once it's clamped, just to make any minute adjustments necessary. Skipping ahead of the rinse and repeat for doing the other piece, the clamps come off for the last time. Now we have a fully formed case. It's solid, light, and has all the holes you could ever ask for. You can see the space made for the Wiimote cable to fit through. If you were making a hardwired version for another console, you'd simply place this cut on the top side. Now if we drop the top frame on for a test fit, it's already starting to look pretty good. Well, greasy fingerprints aside. It's a pretty snug fit, but that can be fixed later with a touch of sanding. At least the Wiimote is held securely, and by just half the frame. Well, this is all good, so now we can move on to taking the glass out of the top frame. Because we're going to be using a styrene sheet for the top frame, this glass needs to come out. It's typically glued in with a heat-sensitive gum, which makes the frame fantastically stiff, but is a slight roadblock. I'm using this super high-performance Serious Workshop tool I just happened to find in my wife's bathroom to heat the aluminium while I release the glue by applying spread pressure to the glass. Be very careful with this part. Wear gloves and goggles and all that safety stuff. I'm not careful, but I've worked in hospitality for 15 years, so I've already cut everything important. And once you're done with that, you should be able to perform magic tricks with the leftover frame. I take no responsibility if you accidentally get two magically tangled together. Do not ask me how to separate them, I'm forbidden to tell. Well, it looks like this video is getting a bit long. We'll call it here for now, but be sure to tune in next time when we cover how to cut the brittle styrene, do a bit of painting, and prepare the whole thing for wiring. Remember to sub and or like, and if you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. We'll see you next time.